Hey, it's Josie with Affirmation Pod, where you get soothing affirmations infused with self-love, available 24/7 whenever you need it. I want to welcome new listeners and longtime listeners to this episode, which is episode 300. Thank you for joining me here. Today's episode is Affirmations for Self-Love 2. Of course, the sister episode to this one is episode 227, which is Affirmations for Self-Love. Before we go into it, I'm going to yammer a little bit. Let's go back with me about 12 years ago. I'm at the gym, I'm doing my bicep curls, and I'm listening to the My Thought Coach podcast by Sten Hansen. And when I'm finishing up my workout, I grab my black mat, put it down on the floor, start doing my stretches. And that's when I listen to the Meditation Oasis podcast by Mary Maddox. Those moments were changing my mindset, changing my self-esteem, changing the ways I was handling stress in my life. At that point, I had no thought of making a podcast. I think I've said this before years ago, but when I started thinking I could make affirmations myself, the thought was that it would be just for myself. And that's what I started out doing. And it was years later that I thought maybe I could do this and publish it as a podcast. Now here we are at episode 300. Because I'm publishing 2 episodes now, it feels like it came up fast, but at the same time, it took me 7.5 years to get here. So all that to say, whether you're very new to listening to Affirmation Pod, you've been with me since 2013 when this was the Affirmations for Healthy Living podcast, or anywhere in between in the last 7.5 years, thank you for enriching my life. I've learned so much through podcasting, and it's been such a big part of my own personal growth and healing and recovery and work on my confidence, my self-acceptance. It feels great to be here at episode 300. In so many ways, I've only just begun, but I'm not sure there would have been an episode 1 if it wasn't for Mary from Meditation Oasis and Sten at My Thought Coach. Mary's a friend. She knows I'm giving her a shout out in this episode. Hi, Mary. Hello, Richard. And Sten and I've reached out to her in the past. We've never actually connected, but I want to give credit where credit is due. Those 2 podcasts meant so much to me and made me see what was possible. At the special milestone of Affirmation Pod, instead of having a sponsor, I actually have a reverse sponsor. I'm not sure how else to say it. As part of my role and my work here, I want to help lift Black voices. And as I mentioned in my Black Lives Matter episode, I'm working with some Affirmation Pod listeners on getting their voice out into the world. And so I'm delighted to announce that Affirmation Pod listener Ari Antwine has just launched her brand new podcast. What is she all about? She's a sensual educator and facilitator. She believes that sex and sensuality are integral to your life, your work, and your joy. I bet your ears have perked up now. Her podcast is called the Sensuelle Podcast. What are you going to hear on it? Well, Ari identifies as a Black queer woman, and she's having conversations with women who are changing the sensual and sexual industries. And I said earlier that this is a reverse sponsorship because I want to see what history has shown are underrepresented voices and underestimated voices get to share their voice, their thoughts, their emotions, their experiences. So we are covering Ari's ongoing podcast hosting costs. I say we because I can only do this because of your support of Affirmation Pod. I essentially told her, if I'm able to keep podcasting, you're going to be able to keep podcasting. The Sensuelle Podcast with Ari Antwine is available now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Sensuelle is spelled Sensuelle, and I'll have the links in the episode notes of this episode. Congratulations, Ari, on your focus and hard work in getting this podcast launched. Now, if you're listening to this and you want to start a podcast and you're wondering if I could offer some help and sponsorship to you as well, I'm actually at the point where I have a wait list. But I do encourage you to get in touch with me. I can send you some information on how to launch a podcast that I've been sending to others. So again, thank you for joining me for episode 300 of the Affirmation Pod podcast. Here is Affirmations for Self-Love version 2. I'm the first to say, when my insecurities take over, I really don't like me. Self-love can sound simple and easy, yet feel so foreign and out of reach. I have struggles and I have blocks. They've prevented me from being able to open myself to a relationship with myself that is loving, kind, and caring. But I'm here now to allow love and healing to come into my life. I give myself time and space for self-care and reflection. To open myself up to things that bring me joy and pleasure. I am the unique me that I adore. I give myself the gift of love. My self-worth comes from inside. I am valuable and I am worthy of a great life. I give myself self-love and approval. No matter what I do or what I choose, I am loved. My worth and value are here for good. They were always here. I just didn't believe it. My value is in who I am. This is my self-love journey. I continue my relationship with myself, with self-love, and with self-appreciation. I am aware of the quiet background conversations in my mind. I am aware of the wounds I have. I am aware of the needs I have. I am aware of the behaviors I choose. I comfort myself in healthy and caring ways. I truly can say I am a friend to myself. I live in self-love and I honor how unique I am. I keep practicing self-love as I keep growing in self-love. I find new ways of being honest with myself. I find new ways of being comfortable with myself. I find new ways of being confident in myself. I am loving and taking care of myself. I love myself. I speak words of love to myself. I encourage and affirm me. I have compassion and kindness in how I see myself. I love me. I like me. I am good to me. And I stay true to this love. That is my gift for you today. Thank you for being here with me on the 300th episode of Affirmation Pod. As I mentioned in the intro, I really have only just begun. This podcast is not going anywhere, but behind the scenes, I'm exploring some options of more ways I can serve you better while still being able to prioritize my time at home with my kids. The number of listeners has grown to a point where I really need to do something that I should have done a long time ago, and that's to send out a survey. When I knew I was going to share about this in this episode, part of me was like, that sounds so boring. But then I also flashed back to a while ago when one of my favorite tech podcasters, Kara Swisher, was asking for feedback from her audience. And I sat down for over 20 minutes answering the questions in her survey and really giving thoughtful feedback on how she could make her work and her impact in the world even greater, even better. A couple questions I have on my survey that Kara didn't have that I'm really looking forward to your answers are, if we were going out for lunch tomorrow, what would you tell me about? And to piggyback off that, if we were going out for lunch tomorrow, what would you ask me about? I'm really looking forward to hearing your answers. Your thoughts and opinions will help me so much with the next chapter for me and Affirmation Pod. You can fill it out by going to affirmationpod.com/survey. That's affirmationpod.com/survey. And don't forget to check out the Sensuelle podcast with Ari Antwine. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. Again, I have links to her podcast in the episode notes. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm so grateful I get to do what I do. Now go be you, know you, and love you. This is Josie with Affirmation Pod. Bye for now.